Can I say how pleased I am to be here with you today? In Wiltshire, the localism agenda, as it was called, the big society, is something that the council is embedded in the council. But more than that, it's a great passion for me as a leader. I just want to take you back. I was leader of the county council before it became a unitary in 2009. After I had led the council through 2 budget rounds, it was clear to me that local government services in the county of Wiltshire were not sustainable in the future, that we had to do something radically different with our communities, with our residents, in order that we could keep the services at the level we wanted, or at least enable services. And that meant to us having a totally different relationship with our residents, getting down there and getting them to trust us, and getting community confidence. And that has led us through the last year or so of the county council, but more importantly, it's what actually it was the driver for our submission to be one council, and has been the driver ever since, and is clearly in our vision for everything we do. So it was the backbone of our unitary bid. And by working locally, what we are beginning to do, and this is not an easy thing, believe me, and you can challenge me on this, it takes a long time to turn a big battleship like Wiltshire Council around. But we are beginning to build local trust and confidence in us, and that's important to do that. I believe that's the most important thing to do in the first place. So our vision was when we put the submission in, and still is and will continue to be, to build our communities to be strong and resilient. It's all about people, it's all about places, it's all about communities who have a real sense of their belonging and self-sufficiency. And those communities then want to work to solve local issues themselves in partnership with you and with us, with other public services in the private sector. I don't need all the evidence that comes out of the research to tell me as a community leader that people who live in places with a strong sense of community have a better quality of life. They're more self-sufficient, they need less public services, and basically they're happier people. We know that, we all know that as we work in our communities. I'll just say something that is not on my script to say when I wrote it yesterday. But a lot of people talk about, well, it's all right in Wiltshire, it's middle class, it's got good income families, it's not the same as an inner city urban area. That's not true. My communities have a low wage economy, they have house prices that are very high. Many of the families that live in Wiltshire communities, 2 people work, they work very hard, they do long hours in order to be able to live in the communities they live in. They have very little time to themselves. I think we need to challenge the view that middle class, wealthy, more affluent communities, it's easier. It's not always easier. So don't take that and challenge that. I ask you to do that because I do that. I also think we need to challenge the ageing population. The new 65 is the old 55. That is a huge number of volunteers that we need to tap into. And sadly, I think we need to tap in also to the number of people that are going to be made redundant and being out of work in the next 2 or 3 years. People with huge skills that we should be able to help our communities, at least in the short term. And it will help them, I think, to keep their dignity within our communities as well. That's as an aside. But I'll also challenge you about where the role of local government is. I think probably a lot of people here are from the voluntary sector. And I understand and I see my business changing over the next 4 years considerably. I've told all the staff this. It will be a smaller organisation. It won't be delivering all the same services. It actually will be enabling, commissioning other people like yourselves, to deliver a lot of those services for us. Things like social enterprise. So we will be smaller, and we will be enabling, supporting, leading role rather than a service deliverer, I believe. But I also believe that local government actually has a key role in the big society for the future in that role of enabling, of helping, of supporting, and also of leading communities to do things themselves. So don't forget us, that's what I say. So, how are we doing it in Wiltshire? Well, we have very, very strong relationships between the public sector, all the public sector partners, and the voluntary sector. And I hope that will be agreed by my voluntary sector colleagues that are here today listening to what I'm saying. But we do have a strong relationship, a challenging relationship. And we also are beginning, and thank you, Anne, for that, beginning to bring in the private sector as well, because I think they have a key role in this in the future. We've got the way we work, and the way I think we all have to work is, first of all, we have to work together for shared vision. It's no point having a vision that is different across all sectors. So we have worked, and we will continue to work on a shared vision and prioritisation of the important things in Wiltshire. And then together we will work to achieve the goals that we set ourselves. One of the key partners we can't forget as well is the communities themselves, and I'll talk a bit more about how we get their priorities and their goals in a minute. So our goals are, first of all, and we've worked with these over the last couple of years, is to change our services to deliver what communities need, but in a joined-up way. Communities get very, very fed up with hearing it's not my job to do that, it's somebody else's job to do that, so go and ring another telephone number, or maybe you can ask this voluntary sector organisation or that. We need to be joined up, all of us, together, because that's what makes sense to our residents. The one thing that I've ever knew hit the press and sort of enlightened people and brought people to talk to local radio and local papers was when we brought out our first community plan, which talked about how we were all going to do things together in Wiltshire. People were interested in that. It fired them up. I was yesterday at an antisocial behaviour strategy meeting, launch of their work plan. And it was interesting how the public were there, and there was a lot of public there, was saying, yes, thank goodness you're working up, because if we had noisy neighbours, the housing authority said it wasn't, the housing department said it wasn't their problem, the police said it wasn't their problem, and nobody did anything. We don't do it like that in Wiltshire now. We all work together as one team, dealing with antisocial behaviour from the very low to the very high levels. And nobody passes the buck, and if they do, then, you know, I get a bit angry, actually. We then decide, and the other goal is to talk to people in a language they understand. We've got to cut out the bureaucracy that's in public service particularly. People don't understand it, they don't want to know it, they want a can-do culture that doesn't hide behind this statutory duty, that statutory duty, or whatever. And that's where we will, in Wiltshire, be challenging the government on any bit of legislation or statutory duty that we don't think has any use at all and makes any difference to our communities. And we're asking our communities as well, and our partners, to look at those with us. Some of them are internal. Some of them are internal in local government, and it's my job to seek those out and stop that as well. And to that end, all my major services are going through big service reviews, and those service reviews are saying, start with the customer and work backwards, cut out all the bureaucracy, the waste, the bits of things that you don't need to do. We looked at more potholes in Wiltshire than we ever filled. Absolutely. If you stop looking at potholes and fill potholes, you fill more potholes. And it's very simple, really. And we need, and we should be challenged by government. And I think this is the public sector reform that needs to happen in order for us to deliver what we're going to deliver. So it's about getting rid of bureaucracy, having a can-do culture, but most importantly, engaging all our communities in all the decisions that affect their lives. Don't make them without talking to them first. Stop the word consultation, talk about talking and listening, and then before you ever make a decision that affects their lives. It's easy to say it, and it comes back a lot to trust that the communities have with you as a public sector, particularly. If they trust you, then they'll talk to you openly and they will believe what you say and the evidence you give. And then, of course, most importantly is how we change our work with partners. Another goal is to ensure that we actually combine those resources that we all use. I think we're better than we ever were, but I don't think we're at the end of the journey yet. We can do more, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute. So we do need to work with partners and make sure we don't duplicate things. I remember as a new councillor 12, 14 years ago, we never talked to the health service, we never talked to the police, we never talked to any of our other partners. Hence, we were all doing the same thing in the same communities over and over again. That doesn't happen now, but I think we can get better. I think all this that I've talked about happened before the financial situation that we find ourselves in now, and I think all I'm going to say about that is it is more critical now than it was before to work together, because there is going to be less money about, significantly less money about. I think it's important we have this trust in our communities so they understand and will listen to what we're saying about some hard decisions that are going to be made. But I think if we entrench into our own little worlds and just do our own basic services and don't continue moving forward to work together, then we will lose out big time in the future. And to that end, Wiltshire is not cutting anything to its voluntary and community sector. It hasn't in the last 2 years, and it intends to continue to support them because we feel that they are a key partner and probably an increasingly important partner as we go through. So that's our philosophy. But I think one of the things that is coming out from the new government is, and that is exciting and will help us deal with the financial situation, is the freedoms that we're going to have on the money that we do have. I welcome that. That is going to help us all to be able to prioritise the spending in our communities and to be able to do things creatively and different that we've not been able to do before because we've not had that freedom. I also look with interest at the new powers of competence and whether that's going to cut out a bit of bureaucracy or hopefully a lot of bureaucracy. And I think if the government really does, grab this and go with it, then I think that is an extremely significant opportunity for all of us for the future. I've talked a lot of words at the moment, and I don't like words terribly much. Let me tell you how it works in Wiltshire, because perhaps that's what you'd like to know. When we started off as a new council in April 2009, very new, and we've only been going 18 months, we set up 18 community areas. We traditionally had 20 community areas in the county. These were areas where people, usually the market towns, because we're a county of small market towns, and they're rural hinterland. These were communities where people went to school, did their shopping, did their commerce, possibly went to work, although we're an out-commuting council at the moment. So they had traditionally and historically, those were the communities that people lived and worked in. And we'd gone out way back in the mid-90s to discuss with all our communities as to where they felt they belonged in the county. Unfortunately, two or three of those were very small, very sparse, and so with agreement of the communities we joined a couple up, and we've now got 18 community areas. It's important that those are community areas. A lot of people talk about community committees and community boards. It's bigger than that. It has to be bigger than a meeting. It has to be a way of working to make it work. So our community areas have a manager. That manager knows and understands all the people in that community, not just the officers from the council, but the voluntary sector leaders, the other public sector leaders, the businesses in the community. He or she knows how that community works and can find an answer to anything in that community almost immediately. We give them a lot of training in that, and we give them a lot of support in that.